President Donald Trump's approval rating fell to 39% in mid-December 2025, nearing the lowest point of his current term, as a new Reuters, Ipsos poll found growing voter frustration over his handling of the U.S. economy. The survey results, based on nationwide responses collected in the days preceding December 16, 2025, reflect mounting discontent, including among some Republicans, over persistently high inflation and the impact of Trump's economic policies, including tariffs. It is the latest in a series of polls that signal dissatisfaction by a majority of the American public with the current state of the U.S. economy. Putting an end to Joe Biden's inflation and affordability crisis has been a day-one priority for President Trump. Much work remains, but President Trump and his administration will continue to do what is necessary to turn Joe Biden's economic disaster around and restore the historic economy Americans enjoyed during the first Trump term. Said Trump admin. Trump has been in office for almost 11 months, more than enough time, and he's still blaming Biden. Will someone please stick a pacifier in Trump's mouth? The context. The decline in President Trump's approval rating highlights rising economic anxiety and signals potential political vulnerability as Americans express disappointment with the administration's performance on key issues, particularly inflation and the overall economy. Trump does not understand, it is the economy, stupid. The 39% overall job approval marks a fall from the 47% rating Trump held upon returning to office in January 2025 and sits within a point of his lowest rating of the year. The fallout is especially pronounced on economic metrics. Only 33% now approve of Trump's handling of the U.S. economy, the lowest since his second term began, and support from within his own party on this issue has declined from 78% to 72% over the month of December. Discontent with economic management carries significant implications for upcoming congressional races and the administration's legislative agenda. Given that Trump campaigned on reducing prices from day one, once and for all, after former President Joe Biden's tenure, the continued pressure on living costs remains a focal point for both voters and political adversaries. He lied. What to know? The Reuters, Ipsos poll, conducted December 13 to 15, 2025, showed a 2-point decline in Trump's job approval since earlier in December, bringing his rating down to 39% among U.S. adults. The 38% mark from mid-November remains its lowest of the year. Trump re-entered office in January with a 47% rating, underscoring a persistent downward trend over the course of the year as economic challenges mounted. Persistent inflation, hovering around 3% and exceeding the Federal Reserve's 2% target, remained a top concern among voters, according to the poll. Trump's approval on the cost of living also dropped, with only 27% of respondents expressing satisfaction, down from 31% earlier that month. The administration's trade policies, especially tariffs on imports, were pointed to by many economists as factors contributing to employers pulling back on hiring. A recent Republican government shutdown further disrupted economic data collection, compounding overall uncertainty. The Reuters, Ipsos poll was conducted online with 1,016 nationwide respondents and a margin of error of approximately 3 percentage points. The affordability crisis has been a day-one priority for President Trump. Every Trump administration official has been playing their part over the past year to deliver on this priority, from slashing costly regulations to securing historic drug pricing deals, efforts that have cooled inflation and raised real wages. Much work remains, but President Trump and his administration will continue to do what's necessary to turn Joe Biden's economic disaster around and restore the historic economy Americans enjoyed during the first Trump term. And that, my good folks, are a bunch of BS. Trump said in a Truth Social post, "When will I get credit for having created, with no inflation, perhaps the greatest economy in the history of our country? When will polls reflect the greatness of America at this point in time, and how bad it was just 1 year ago?" The issue with President Trump's approach is that he often emphasizes the performance of the stock market as a measure of economic success. However, this metric does not resonate with most Americans, since the majority do not have significant investments in stocks and are more concerned with the costs and challenges they face in daily life. For the average person, immediate concerns like rising grocery bills, rent, healthcare costs, and other everyday expenses matter far more than market indices or investment portfolios. While stock market gains may benefit some investors and retirement accounts, they do not directly address the affordability crisis impacting millions of households. What Americans need is clear information and action on issues that affect their wallets right now, not just projections about future savings or investments. What happens next? President Trump's approval numbers will remain closely tied to perceptions of economic performance as Congress resumes work in January and campaigns for the 2026 midterm elections intensify. Polls suggest that continued inflation or a downturn in hiring could further challenge the administration's standing. Republican candidates in competitive districts may face increased pressure if negative trends persist. The next round of nationwide polls and scheduled economic data releases in early 2026 are expected to play a significant role in shaping both political strategy and voter sentiment. It's going to be a hard candy Christmas for a lot of people in this country. As economic uncertainty persists and many families struggle to balance rising costs with stagnant wages, the holiday season may feel less joyous and more burdensome for those just trying to make ends meet. This sense of hardship underscores the urgent need for policies that address real, everyday concerns faced by Americans across the nation. The Republican Party is done, toast, DOA, all thanks to Donald J. Trump. Rest in peace, Republican Party. Subscribe.
Message spoke to you. Don't forget to like, share,